The layer of clay mixed up with old decaying seaweed, which is about an 18-inch to 2-foot down layer in this particular beach. The U-shaped burrow is between the cast and the dip in the sand, which indicates where the head of the worm lays. This type of lug can be anything up to 10 inches long. What we're now looking for is the first sign of the black lugworm on the beach, and we will find this when the cast appears, and the cast will be a beautiful symmetrical cast with a tiny hole in the centre. This is a blow lug cast. This is what we're looking for, is the cast of the black lug. Now there's the hole. Now I'm going down past the hole. There's the tail. And now I'll get my hand down. And lift the worm up onto the sand. And there it is. Black lugworm. There it is. We'll just rinse it off. And there it is. Excellent bait for bass, cod, flatfish. This is a small one. They grow considerably bigger than this. When you've finished, don't forget to fill your hole in. We don't want any other users of the beach complaining that we're making a mess. These are a white ragworm, some people call them catworm. Excellent bait for match fishing, where you're after smaller fish, plus they can be used to tip off a larger bait to give it visual attractiveness. White ragworm. There's the tail, see it? Yeah. Good 8 inches long. An excellent bait for cod, flounder, dabs, plaice, most bottom feeding fish. What I'm doing now is walking backwards, and I'm aiming to just startle the razorfish into revealing his whereabouts. And as he goes down, he'll take some sand with him and leave behind a characteristic key-shaped hole. There's one. What I'm now doing is squirting a mixture of salt and water down the hole. This will irritate the razorfish, and he will start to move, as you can see. Add a bit more. Here he is. Here he is. Yep, it's coming up. Come on. There she comes. The salt's now irritated it, and up through the burrow it comes, and we can just pick it up as easy as that. Commonly known as a razorfish, this bait is good for most flatfish, And it's especially good on our local beaches for big flounder when there's a big blow coming in from an easterly direction. It's also extremely good for bass, and the French love to eat them. I've now got enough bait to last me 2 to 3 hours. Right, that's enough of the bait collected for now. I'm off down to the factory and I can get myself a new rod. I'm just whipping the second rig on this Fuji ring. Now when it comes to Fuji rings, you have a choice. You can either go, if you look in front of me, you'll see on the left there are some NHG Bond rings. Now these up to now have been the industry standard, but they are an old-fashioned design and they tend to be somewhat on the heavy side. Modern surf rods are very light, so we recommend that we use the lightweight rings opposite to the old BNHGs. Now these are something like 50% lighter. Now, a lot of rod builders say, oh phooey, you don't need to worry about things like that. Well, if you've got a Formula 1 racing car, which is the equivalent of these blanks that we're using today, then you have to account for every single ounce, I'm afraid. And that is one of the reasons why in a lot of cases people go out and buy a rod and they wonder why it won't perform. Well, partially it's their own fault, but partially it's the fault of the rod, because the rod has been equipped with rings inappropriate to the blank. Right, we'll just finish this off and we'll get some varnish on. These days we use a 2-part epoxy resin, relatively fast setting, and it's as tough as old boots, which means that we can rush off down to the beach and we can play with our new toy. In the old days, people used to use dope and all manner of weird wonderful things on whippings. These days, 2-part epoxy resin is all you need. Fairly easy to apply. Use a stiffish brush to make sure that the epoxy goes where you want it to go and not where it wants to go. Once you've got plenty on, just run the brush along the axis of the blank just to smooth everything out. As you can see, you've got plenty on. It's a bit like treacle. Don't be frightened of it, and don't be too miserly. Put plenty on. It's not called a high build finish for nothing. Under normal circumstances this would take 6 to 8 hours to set, but being lazy and having more things to do with my time, we're going to make use of what chemists know as the Arrhenius equation, and we're going to warm up the epoxy resin, because the Arrhenius equation states that for every 10 centigrade degree increase in temperature the reaction rate doubles. So we're going to speed things up somewhat by increasing the temperature of the resin. Right, we will still need to rotate this just for a few minutes until the resin has gelled. Right, you don't want to watch me whipping another 7 rings on, so we'll put that on one side. The last thing that we will apply to that is reflective tape. Now you'll see in a second why it's so useful at night. Gives the most amazing bite detection you've ever seen, providing you use a headlight, of course. A number of years ago we were a little bit puzzled about problems we were having with traces, especially when we were fishing in deeper water. And what was happening, we were hooking smaller fish and these fish were spinning as we wound them in, and of course we were getting some tremendous tangles with the traces. And one of the things we wanted to avoid at the time, especially with speed fishing, was the amount of time that we wasted trying to untangle these things. Now the first thing that we came across that really worked well was a flat braid which was used for the backing for fly lines, and as you can see it hangs as straight as a die without giving it a tug, pull or anything like that, and when it twisted and kinked up like this, which is what happened when you hooked a pouting or a whiting, you give it a pull and run your fingers down it and it was as straight as a die. Now the only problem with this particular material is that a 50 metre spool of it cost over £6. Needless to say, the British sea angler held his hand up in horror and went, "Oh God, I can't afford that." So then we looked around a little bit more and we came upon another interesting material which was originally only produced in black. It's called Amnesia. Now I've forgotten why. Sorry, joke there. Amnesia. Made in America. Comes in 200-foot spools. When it comes off the spool, as you can see, it's got a coil in it. But it has this interesting property, and if you give it a pull, again it will do what the original braid that we used did, which is hang nice and straight. So you'll find a lot of the thinking sea anglers these days are using this. Now people worry about these fluorescent colours, but underwater they just die away. In my working laboratories years ago, we used to use ultraviolet spectrophotometers, and one of the solvents we didn't dare use was water, because unfortunately water didn't transmit ultraviolet very well, so you had no worries on that score. Now then, first trace I want to show you is the wishbone trace, which utilises two hooks attached to a single trace. This gives your fish a chance of a choice. It can take one or the other bait. The only problem is people have great difficulty in tying this particular trace up. What I've seen happen on the beach is people will tie two pieces of line together and then try and attach a hook to either end. Unfortunately, you end up with the situation where you've got a table and you want to level the table, so you have to keep hacking bits off each alternate leg, and you end up with the table that's flat on the ground. Easiest way, single piece of line, and I'm going to use a grinner knot here, and attach a hook to each end. 3 times round, tucked through 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Simple knot. Now the reason why we tuck it 3 times is when you tighten the knot up, the free end ends up poking away from the hook and will act as a bait holder. Unfortunately that one. There we go. As you can see, trim off the end. So, as you can see, that stub will help to keep the bait on. And we do the same at the other end. 1, 2, 3 times round. Down and through. Turn the end back. Tuck once. Tuck twice. Tuck 3 times. You can put 4 turns or 5 turns on. 3 turns holds quite adequately in my experience. Good pull, and as you can see, again the end points upwards. Having done that, put both hooks together, level, take the line, decide exactly where you want the 2 hooks, and just put a simple figure of 8 knot, like so. Just pull, and then cut either of the ends away from the hook, and presto, instant wishbone. It really is as easy as that. If you decide that you want these held further apart, then you can utilise these new aero beads, which are tapered beads, and if you put a tapered bead on each side of the wishbone and trap it with these little crimps, then that will act like so and push the 2 sides of the wishbone apart. Me, I prefer it just as it comes. There are 3 methods that I use for trapping a swivel between 2 beads for long range fishing. First of them I have to thank the trout fishermen for, and this is power gum. It's peculiar stuff, elastic, and it ties a most amazing knot. If I take a little piece of leader, all you do is you lay your power gum alongside the leader, just make a single loop, like so, and you should tie an overhand knot, but you put it through 5 or 6 times, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Just pull up, and when you reach about this stage, a little bit of saliva on it, just to help it tighten. When you pull, and as you can see, it tightens up beautifully. Trim the ends with the power gum, and you've got a nice stop knot, which if you pull hard, you can move. Now this comes in very handy at times. You can make up your rig 2 or 3 feet away from the lead, and when you actually hook a big fish, the pressure from your rig will actually slide that right the way down to the lead, so that your lead is then suspended in between the fish and the leader, so there's less chance of your lead actually catching up on the bottom. So that's extremely useful. So that's one method. As you can see, move it about as easy as that, and yet it's more than tight enough for long range fishing. Second method is to use silicone rubber tubing. Now, this is interesting stuff. Again, this comes from the trout fishing brigade. And this is silicone rubber tubing, and if you cut off roughly 1/4 inch of it, thread your shock leader through, and thread it through again. Not quite so easy this. It's fairly small in diameter. So. Now, as you carry on pulling, you'll see the whole lot turn over, and it forms this most peculiar looking knot. Now don't ask me why it works, but it does, and that will now slide up and down. Completely unpublicised. I've no idea who to credit for this little invention, but when you pull this little device off the end, as you'll see in a second or two, when you slide it off, you end up with just a little piece of tubing. Don't know how it works, but it does. That's the second method. The third method involves the use of these lightweight metal crimps. Fits very easily on 55 or 60 pound nylon. It's very important when you're doing this not to over tighten these. Just needs a gentle squeeze, that's all it takes. Nice and tight. And now we can put a bead up against that, another swivel, bead, other crimp, and then we're rolling. So we'll go ahead and do that. Beads we're using are these peculiarly shaped aero beads, and I've found if I trap the swivel using the points of the bead, you get beautiful rotation. Now you don't want too big a swivel for doing this. These were size 8. People say, oh, gosh, they're not a tiny little swivel. Gosh, shock horror. Well, if I tell you could virtually tow a mini behind one of these things, they are so strong. You have no worries on that score at all. Now there's the principle. Tangle free. So now we put the next crimp on the top, tighten everything up, like so, and there's the complete rig. We're now ready to go. Attach the lead one end and a bait clip if we need it, and at the other end fit a swivel and a clip. So we'll now cut that off. slightly heavier duty swivel. Three times round, down and through, tuck it 3 times, once, twice, 3 times, same knot, no point in changing knot just for the sake of it. Trim off. Here's our no tangle rig. Now we come to the bait clip. This fairly complex piece of equipment. We're going to use one of Nigel Forrest's new impact shields. Rather a nice piece of equipment this, but they must be done the right way and in the right order. So the first thing you need is a crimp, or a stop knot, or a little piece of silicone rubber tubing, followed by a bead. I'll use another one of the aero beads, followed by the item in question, followed by a piece of their supplied silicone rubber tubing. Having threaded on those 4 items for one bait clip, which makes it sound horribly complicated, we now want a lead clip. I prefer these to any other. I've tried the American snap type and I've actually had them undo in mid-cast, so I'm afraid I just do not trust them anymore. So we'll just put that on. Something off. Having got all that on, get that down and out of the way. Now we take our wishbone, measure the wishbone off against the bait clip to give us the length that we need. So around about right. Now we tie the wishbone on. 1, 2, 3 turns round. Stick to the same knot all the time. No need to chop and change. This knot is more than adequate for anything you require to attach. Bring the end up tight, a little bit of saliva just to moisten, tighten it up, trim our end. Right, now we need to adjust our impact shield. Now you'll see the reasoning behind this in a second. If I put the 2 hooks together, hook them on the impact shield, and then put the whole thing under slight pressure, like so. Now that gives us the exact measure where we should actually put this crimp. So we now take the pliers, give that a squeeze, and it's now set. So now if I hold it up, it doesn't matter how hard I pull, the impact shield won't move. But when the shield hits the water, 2 hooks are automatically ejected, like that. So simple, but so effective. Now to make sure that the impact shield stays where we want it to stay, we now utilise the supplied piece of silicone rubber tubing, which just fits over the spigot on the end. And having done that, we've now got one long range trace ready for use. And there it is. One wishbone, impact shield, all ready to attach. And for ease of attachment, just take one of these clips to the swivel at the end. So now that end goes to the leader, and to the other end we attach a lead. Right, now we're ready to go fishing, so off we go. Welcome back to the beach. We've got the rods, we've got the reels, and welcome to Liam.
Hi.
Liam's come to join us. He's a boat fisherman, he's done up tiding, but he has yet to do any long-range surf casting, so we've got him down here today to teach him just that. Now, I understand you've picked up 1 or 2 bits and pieces that I suggested you go and get.
Yeah. You sent me away for some shock leader to start with.
Right, so what do you got?
So I came up with a roll of this that I wanted you to look at. Tapered shock leader.
Rolls Royce.
10 of them. Talk to me about that.
Well, it's fine. Wonderful stuff.
I like the idea.
Excellent idea. Everybody else uses common or garden, 50, 55 pound, which is normal. If you tie this on, you get a fairly bulky knot, no matter how careful you are. And if you're fishing somewhere where there's a bit of weed, the bigger the knot, the bigger the lump of weed you're going to catch up with, and eventually it'll be so big you can't get it through the yard, and especially if you've got a fish on it, it leads to frustration and banging the rod and cursing and swearing.
Yeah, gotcha.
If you're using this stuff,
I thought this was really user-friendly, because I could get a small knot, as I'm not particularly experienced of tying knots with shock leaders.
well, precisely. Well, we'll show you how to do this, and we'll show you how to do the big one as well.
Okay.
All right, so this one is okay for when you've got nice clear beaches, no weed, no rubbish. But we'll start off with this one.
Okay.
Dead easy. What we're going to use is a double uni knot. Okay, now a uni knot, ever so simple. You just make a loop, lay it alongside whatever you're tying it to.
Main loop in the main line.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you just put your end through 4 or 5 times. 2, 3, 4, 1 for luck, 5. And then just pull gently. And it'll all tighten up all by itself. Don't tighten it right up because we've got a second knot to do.
Right.
So we turn the whole lot round, make another loop.
Indian shock leader.
That's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Doesn't really matter. What is important, add a little bit of saliva just to lubricate the knot.
Okay.
All right, then pull, and the two will slide up to each other, and hey presto.
And very pretty in blue and yellow. This is blue, isn't it? I'm colourblind.
It's fluorescent, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, people say, oh, why do you use these fluorescent lines? Well, for me, if you get in a big tangle with everybody else, you just cut all the lines except the fluorescent one.
Right. And you're the only one still fishing.
You got it. Sounds a bit nasty on the others. Fluorescent lines don't cost much more, and they are environmentally far more acceptable these days than these invisible things. Anyway, if you like to...
Visibility isn't detrimental, you don't think, to the fishing?
Well, if you see what commercial fishermen fish with for their long lines, it's a brighter orange than this is.
That's true.
On the hook snoods, and it doesn't seem to put the fish off at all. So, judge for yourself.
Right, so I've just gone on with this. How much do you want me to put on?
Well, these things are actually
You can have the
pre-cut. Oh, thank you, just what I wanted. There we are. There's your end.
Right.
So what we do now...
And it's approximately how long was each of these leaders then?
It's about 35 feet, I should think. What does it say? 33 feet.
Okay, yeah.
Ideal length for use with the reel in a high position. For a reel in a low position, which we'll show you a little bit later on, normally your rig would extend it slightly.
Right.
But on their own, they're not really long enough for really in the low position. But they're okay for 99.99% of the anglers in Britain, which is exactly what's wanted. Okay. All we've got to do now is something to attach to the end. I like a perfection loop.
A perfection loop.
It's stolen from the trout fishermen, but why should they have all the best bits?
True, yeah.
All you do, loop, second loop, going around the front and round the back.
Right.
Got 2 loops now.
Yeah.
Take your free end and just put it in between the 2 loops.
Middle, yeah.
Then you reach through and pick up
the top loop.
Okay, by pulling it through the second loop. Give it a lip and a good pull.
Okay, yeah, got that.
And if that sticks out at 90 degrees, you know you've got it right.
All right.
So all we need to do now is trim off the end and we're ready to roll.
When you've untangled the scissors from your keys.
Precisely. Never use a lead tied directly onto the shock leader. You should always use a link.
Why?
Now, the reason for this is it doesn't matter so much with these long tails, but where you're using a normal lead with a short tail, if that's tied directly, as it comes in across the bottom, abrasion sets in and you'll end up with a knot with possibly a breaking strain of only about 10 pounds. Next cast, snap.
I'm with you. Okay.
Now, if we...
So it's another safety factor in reality.
That's it. If we put this in, then the lift angle is such that it keeps the knot out of the way. Right, we're all set. We've got that attached, nice and safe.
Yep.
Tide's coming far enough for you lazy boat anglers, so you don't have to walk so far. So we'll go and have a little play.
Is my limit. So this is the first time, Phil, I've ever gone fishing with just a weight on the end of my line. Do you think there's justification in learning to cast properly before you go beach fishing?
Oh, yeah. What's the point in going on a beach where you can cast 80 yards and you need 120 you've wasted your money on your bait, travel, food. And the list is almost endless. You're just wasting money.
Okay.
All right?
So it's quite a good way of encouraging yourself to just practice casting is putting nothing on there but a weight, isn't it, really?
Oh, yes. Well, there's a lot...
Just put the rig on, it's a bit tempting to slap a worm on and get on with the job.
Well, there's a lot to be said for putting a long one down, if you know what I mean.
Yes, yeah.
Anyway,
right.
Yes, justified, definitely.
Okay. All right. Now, I see you're also using a 12-foot beach caster today. You often work with 13-foots, etc., don't you?
Oh, yes,
right.
but once you extend much beyond 12 feet, then the leverage against you becomes such that you need all the power in your right hand, and that's why the rod in the middle, which is a 13-foot plus, has got the reel mounted at the bottom.
I'm with you.
Now, that is for real ultra-long range.
Yeah. Maximising the length of the rod to do the job.
Now, as a general time scale, once you've learnt to cast, say, 150 yards with this outfit, then it's going to take you another probably 15 hours of practice with the reel in the low position to reach the same range.
Right.
But a similar amount of time then spent on it will give you another 20-25% increase in distance again.
That's a lot of distance.
So it will probably push you up to 170, 180, 190 yards with the reel in the bottom.
Okay. Well, as a youngster, I've always fished with fixed spool. I've only come onto the multiplier. I've used my multipliers for boats, obviously, but I've only come onto this casting type for my uptight fishing. Right. Are you saying there's no room anymore, really, for fixed spool casting on a beach?
Oh, no, far from it. The main problem with fixed spools is they do tend to encourage people who are just starting out to substitute brute strength for technique.
Right.
Yeah. If you use brute strength with any of these outfits without the correct technique, you'll get a colossal backlash or an overrun.
Right, I'm with you.
All right, so the outfit will tell you when you're trying to overpower it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And you're using the wrong technique.
Well, yeah,
right.
And that.
So why don't you show me the right one then with what I'm going to cast with?
Guess what I've got here?
Ring balance. Yeah.
Right, now what I'm going to get you to do, I'm going to take your rod off you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not stealing it. Now what I want you to do is to hook the spring balance into the loop.
Okay.
So that we can measure the amount of pressure.
Right.
Now then, all the old methods of casting said you should have your lead extended in a straight line from the rod. So if we put all this in a straight line, like so, with that down the bottom, if I now try and put this under pressure, tell me how much pressure.
12 pounds.
12 pounds. Right, now then, if we use the high inertia technique, we should be able to get a much greater bend in the rod with far less pressure. So if you bring that inside now,
whereabouts?
That's it, about there. Now what we're looking for is a much better bend in the rod with far less pressure. Well, there's the better bend in the rod. What's the pressure?
4 pounds.
4 pounds. Third the amount of pressure. How much more bend?
Not more bend.
Lot more bend. Right, if we can bend it, we can cast with it.
Right.
That's the secret of this technique.
Okay.
So if you like to unhook that now.
We don't want to sling a spring balance.
Good Lord, no. I should be interested to try one of these days. Anyway, reel's out of gear.
Yeah.
Put the rod tip right on the ground. Won't wear out. Not going to hurt it. Right, now then, you have 3 fixed points with this method. The rod tip, the lead, and the back of your left heel.
Rod tip, lead, back of left heel.
If you put all that in position and then turn so that your feet are about 45 degrees to the direction you're coming from, okay? Everything there is set. Rod tip, lead, back of left heel. Lift the rod up as if you're throwing a javelin, but just reach up and grab with that hand. Then all you do is you turn your head, don't look at the horizon, look up there. The actual angle is about 37.5 degrees, but if you say 45 degrees, you're about right, okay?
Look at the sky,
Not the horizon, that's it. If you look at the horizon, you'll cast to the left and low. If you look to the sky, it'll go up. Everything comes from your head. That's the direction. Everything is there. We know exactly where everything is. We can leave it there. We can stand here for as long as you like. I'm totally relaxed. I see people gripping the rod.
Right.
You don't need to, all right? So from here, turn your head, look up. Up she goes. See the height we got?
Good. And keep
Dropping,
it up
dropping, dropping, boom.
Right. And thumb on the multiplier
When it hits the ground.
water.
Right, that's it. So we'll do that again.
It's exhausting watching you reel it all in.
Oh, that's the worst bit. That's the worst bit, of course.
So what sort of range did you have there? Because you obviously weren't applying the strength that you can do now.
Oh, good Lord, no.
So.
No, what we're after is an easy 100 yards.
Okay.
All right. 100 metres, if we say 100 metres, we'll go metric, and that gives you an extra 10 yards with no extra effort.
Right.
Is that cheating?
No, no.
No, it's all right. 100 metres mon vieux. There we go.
Okay.
Right, now then, the big secret with this is you have to experiment with the length of drop that you use.
Right.
Okay? If the rod feels very stiff, lengthen the drop.
What do you mean by stiff?
Well, you'll feel it for yourself. It's something that only you can play with. See, some people might be able to get away with a little short drop like that and cast. That would probably apply to somebody very, very powerful. Conversely, somebody who's not too strong, to make the rod feel softer, use a longer drop.
I'm with you.
Okay, so if I use a great big long drop like that, make the rod feel very, very soft.
Okay.
If we use a little short drop like that, it makes the rod feel ever so stiff.
And you need to work it quicker.
Oh yes, it will do. Watch. As it happens, it goes away a lot faster. Look, real control.
Right.
Don't need any.
Okay.
All right, a few loops at the end, don't worry about. Just, as with up-tiding,
Pull it all out gently.
and it'll all sort itself out. That's not an overrun in the accepted sense, it's just a few loops because I'm too lazy to put my thumb on at the end of the cast. Anyway.
I'll have a go.
And as it's you can wind the damn thing back in again.
Thank you very much for it. Level wind quite important, yeah?
Oh yeah, keep it nice and level. Keep it nice and level. Once you reach tournaments, then you'll start narrowing down
Yeah.
as you increase the line level, and you start off paying off a very narrow band, and as the line level drops, so it widens out.
I'm with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that the amount of line coming off per revolution remains roughly the same.
So I'm better off actually level winding it out rather than building a bit of a bulge, for want of a better word, in the middle.
In the old days when we used plastic spools, we used to bulge it up a little bit to try and ease the pressure on the end plates.
Right.
Because it was quite common, get a thornback or something like that, and there'd be a clack, and there'd be a sort of trunk of monofilament hanging out the side.
Oh, I'm with you. Okay. Right.
I lost count the number of times I saw that on Clacton Pier years ago. That was the old Pen 100s used to do that.
Gotcha.
Anyway.
So the weight on the ground.
That's it. Now then, swivel yourself round like that. That's it.
Way out to the front, 45 degrees.
Now you want that hand in front of that shoulder.
Yeah.
So we, yeah, I know it sounds odd. Put your feet back. That's it. Okay, get yourself there. You want your rod tip, lead, left heel, all in line. Okay. So we're just about right there.
Right there.
That's it. Now remember, this hand is going to come up here and then into your side.
Okay.
That hand is going to push through and up to the sky. Okay, so
My eyes are up and away.
away you go. Don't try and use brute strength. Just sweep the rod round and up.
Let it go.
Away you go. And don't forget to put your thumb on at the end.
The thumb on the end.
That was ideal.
Not too bad. That's not overrun.
Oh, I see.
First time I've ever done a cast under instruction, and it felt right.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
The important thing is don't use brute strength. I see people go, "Ugh,"
Yeah.
like the old days. I mean, I shouldn't really laugh at them, but I used to see people actually taking a run down the beach and
Oh, that's impressive.
trying to cast. Well,
Yeah.
it didn't do them any good
No.
because they weren't loading the rod. To cast properly, you must load the rod correctly.
Let the rod do the job.
Precisely.
Okay.
Right, get this in. We'll have another go. Or you'll have another go. I've got some bits and pieces to put together over there.
Yeah.
All right, and I'll be back in a short length of time after you've had a few goes at this, just to get yourself sorted out. What I want to see is you doing a steady 100, 120, something like that, and then we'll show you how to convert this into the simple pendulum cast.
Not the simple.
The simple pendulum cast.
Okay, so,
Try again, okay?
Yeah.
Don't forget to put it out of gear. Righto, Liam, you're doing fine. You're doing a nice, easy 100, 110 yards. So what we'll do now, we'll just explain a little something about direction.
Yep.
Because you might have noticed, you're casting the same direction every time.
I wasn't thinking about any other, but if
Well,
I
you
want to
don't
change it, what do I do?
Easy,
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
If that's the direction,
Yeah.
pointing that way, for the feet like that, don't try and cast over there or cast over there without moving your feet.
Right.
Actually shuffle your feet around to cast that way, shuffle your feet around that way to cast that way. Simple.
Do the job like a gun turret.
Looks a bit stupid, but as you say.
You made the point. Most of the time I'm concentrating on just trying to get it out to sea, you know? And because I'm thinking about trying to get it as far as I can with my inadequate casting system, right? I basically tried to stick in a straight line to get the most distance rather than aiming where it might be an appropriate place to fish.
Well, you've now got an adequate casting system. Now, people say, how can you increase this off the ground? It's quite simple. I'll just show you that. We won't actually cast it, but I'll show you how to do it. All right? If you're using a drop of roughly 6 feet on a 12-foot rod, which is what we've got there, now, and that's our standard cast. Okay, if you want to, you can lengthen the drop and start the cast over there. Now, you can see what's going to happen, can't you?
Yes, I'm with you.
All right, you're going to generate a colossal amount of power as you come round. The lead's going to follow the rod tip. If you move too far, though, the lead will start to move outside the rod tip, and as you come round, the lead will come in, which is no good.
Right.
Okay, so there is a point where...
There is some more. I can stretch it some more off the ground, but there's a limit to how far I can go.
That's it, yeah.
At what sort of angle would you say?
I would have said with about 60 degrees to the rod tip, about there, which is just nice. In fact, you could come round there and come over and you could give it one heck of a smack.
Right.
Okay?
Do that as your confidence builds, basically.
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
But...
Talk to me about this simple pendulum cast.
Yeah, well, that's dead easy. If you watch all the top blokes, you'll see I'll stand there like this. Now lift the rod towards them, the lead will come into the elbow, drop it away, dip, push down, lead will go right up in the air like that.
Right.
But that takes a lot of practice to do.
Yeah. Oh, spooky here.
Yeah. It's all right, you're quite safe.
Yeah, I know.
I wouldn't have hit you. Now, if we put it on the ground as if we're going to do this off the ground cast again, okay, we're all set. If I now push my left hand down towards the ground, watch. Out it goes, wait, up it goes.
Gotcha. A straight push. No action with the right hand.
No.
Straight push down with
just
the left.
Use your right hand just as a pivot, like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Get yourself set in the off the ground cast position, like that.
Yeah.
All set. Push down with left, out it goes.
Yeah.
Little push with the left again, and up she goes.
Right.
Easy.
Okay.
It's
so
dead
that
simple.
gives me the swing, and it keeps the control on my swing.
All right. Now then, this at the moment you see we're casting with the same angle to the cast as the off the ground.
Yep.
Okay. So we're coming through 180 degrees virtually.
Gotcha.
Okay, now then, there is no reason at all why you can't start to move around like that. Now you notice that the angle at the rod tip remains the same.
Right.
But all we're doing is increasing the arc that the lead's going to travel through as we come round.
Right.
Okay, so you can virtually pick your own cast.
Okay.
So for medium distances and just for learning with you, start there.
Right.
Right. As you improve, so you think you can actually use a greater arc, you come round a little bit further.
Gotcha.
And in fact, if you want to, you can come from right round there.
And all the way pendulum cast.
But this is where you're starting to get in the realms of tournament casting.
Right.
Okay, and for doing that, of course, you'd use a much longer drop.
Right.
But there is making it easy, literally. Push down, out it swings, wait, let it climb, and up she goes.
Right.
Okay?
Okay. Right, get it back on the simple line for me then.
Okay, we want the simple lines to start with. All right, so there's your off the ground drop there.
Yep.
And we want a longer drop.
A longer drop, okay.
Now, always measure your drop. Okay, now in this particular case, let's start off, say...
So using about 9 foot of drop then?
Something like that, down to the label, okay? Right, we've gone over direction.
Yep.
We've gone over the length of drop that we need.
Yep.
We've gone over how to push the hand down and get the lead to swing. Okay?
That's going to take some practicing, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, practice in your back garden by all means, but don't try casting from your back garden or you'll find the next door neighbours 300 yards away all be moaning about large lumps of lead through their roof.
Okay.
Now, don't laugh, I've done it myself.
Right. All right. So swings only in the back garden?
Swings only in the back garden, that's it, yes. Don't go casting. Most places, there's a park somewhere out of the way where you can do it. But if you're going to practice in a park, make sure you use a high visibility line.
Right.
Then you don't get any complaints from bird
Take a
watchers.
spade to dig your weight up as well.
Oh, well, I've had to do that as well. Anyway, we'll move away from the rods and we'll show you this all in one nice, smooth, easy cast. Now, if you like to stand about 6 feet away from me, just to give me a little bit of space.
Safe enough here?
Yeah, looks fine. Right, let's get ourselves set. So swing the lead in, plonk it down by your heels, rod tip down, reel out of gear, turn so your feet are about 45 degrees to the direction you want to go. Push down with your left, out it goes, wait for it to climb, head round, Away she goes.
It's all right. I like that.
Do you want to wind that in?
Yeah, I'll wind this one
Go
in
on.
for you. Go on. 1 foot, 2 foot.
Nice and level, don't forget. I think I shall go and have a ice cream or two while you're doing that, because that's going to take you ages. Right, that seemed all right. Get it in. Now try this off the ground swing. I'll come round the other side, out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep yourself safe.
Have the lead, measure it off again, up against the rod, bring it down to somewhere in that sort of region.
Peon Procaster.
That'll do fine.
It'll be about 9 feet again.
That's it. All set. Now get your body stance set. That's it.
Rod tip back.
Get your feet ready. That's it.
Arm up. Left down in front of right shoulder.
That's it. Now press down. Out it swings. Let it climb back. Now cast. That's lovely. Makes the rod feel ever so soft, doesn't it?
It does.
Feels just like a stick of rhubarb.
There was no strain. Oh, it's scary trying to do the first one. there's a moment when the weight disappears.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to take up, isn't
That's the time to hit it.
it? Okay.
There is a point where the lead actually appears to vanish when you swing it.
Yes, all the weight disappears.
That's right, yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's reached the point, it's just hovering. And that's the time when you start the cast. You pick the lead up from the air, in mid-air. Because the essence of pendulum casting, of course, with the simple cast, is all you're doing is you're putting the lead in the air above where you had it on the ground.
Right.
Dead simple.
It strikes me that is the moment to have the confidence
Oh, yes.
as well. That's when you commit to the cast.
If you remember that all a pendulum cast is to get the lead in the air above where you had it on the ground.
Right.
That is it. Now, there is one other way of casting a long distance, and you've got to have the right hat to do it.
Oh, right.
That will now give you an extra 30 yards,
Great.
all by itself.
With a peak. Yeah. With a peak.
OK, so
mate.
I've got the bait.
Yeah.
I ain't got enough for you,
Oh, thanks, Phil.
so I'm afraid you're going to have to do a few more practice casts, and I'll go fishing.
You go catch the fish.